Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
So how do you feel about that? Okay, so because like on the one hand, I hear you say it a lot, America's the greatest country in the history of the world. We're so lucky to be Americans, and all of this, like on the one hand, you have, all of these superlatives about this country. But then on the other hand, you have all of this muck and just nefarious, underhanded activity that takes place. That's like this clandestine, behind the veil stuff that's concealed away from us. How do you reconcile those two perspectives for you?
I reconcile it very simply. I think people take a very ignorant approach when they get up on a soapbox and say, "Oh my God, America should be more like this, and this is how so and so does it here," and and we start comparing each other. I think it's very ignorant when we do that because we're human beings just like they're human beings, right? We're human beings just like they're human beings. I'm sorry, but the facts are the facts. And America has only had one revolution. One. All these other countries that talk trash and say these things, and all these countries, actually, I shouldn't say it that way. All these other countries where people in this country go, well, we should go here because they do it so much better and there's so much this. So let's go to some other countries where they've had revolutions as soon as 50 years ago, 20 years ago, that you think are so much better. Like Ukraine, oh my God, then go there. France, then go there. UK, then go there. Because in the UK, you have Sharia law courts now. In London. So then go there. Mm-hmm. Cuba, then go there. China, then go there. Go. Because if you're gay, you'll get thrown off a building. You can't own property in those countries. If you're a woman, you got to wear a burqa, or you don't have the amount of rights you have in America that you have in a different country. So the way I justify it very simply is this is the lesser of the evil, because evil is everywhere. There's good and evil everywhere. These atrocities that we say, oh my God, it's happening in America. It's happening everywhere. America just happens to be the safest place still. Still, safest place. Still the safest place to go. Still. Yes, we could throw out the data and the statistics and all those things. We could do all that. But, sorry, dude. It's this lesser of the evils here. You have more freedoms here per capita than you have more freedoms here globally than anywhere else in the world. It's exactly why you don't see people protest and organize the way you'd see it in America. Because you can't. I would love to see a protest like No Kings that happened recently, because everyone was begging Trump and saying he was a king, but then all of a sudden they were begging the king to release the SNAP benefits because he's a king, right? He's a king, right? No kings, but yet we're going to cry to the king to release the food money. No, Congress had to do that, but there's no kings, right? So ignorant in that protest. That's why No Kings is so ignorant, because it was, he's a king, but yet he's a king that can release the money, but yet you give him the power to release the money. Power of the purse is with Congress, not the king, right? So when you look at that and you see those perspectives, this doesn't happen anywhere else. America is still the guiding light. So it's the lesser of the two evils, because if you look at every other country, I would love to see a No Kings protest happen in China. I'd love to see what Xi Jinping would do to a No Kings protest in China. Dead on arrival. Dead. Actually, you wouldn't even think about doing it, because in the back of your mind, you still think China's the best thing because you grew up that way through the Chinese school system. Just like they do in Japan, just like they do in Afghanistan, just like they do everywhere. See, in the United States, you've got weirdos now that want to indoctrinate people to do things, right? And I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything. And that was a long answer, a simple answer. Len. It's very simple. It's still the lesser of the evils reside here in America. I feel in my heart.
Okay, and I asked you to tell me from your perspective because, I
Because you
think
can still
that
come
you
here
have
and
a
own a
very
business and come from
optimistic.
nothing.
I think you have a very optimistic perspective of the country, and this I don't want to come across like I don't believe that America is a great country.
No,
I don't see
you're
it the
playing devil's
same way
advocate.
you do. Well, what I'm saying is, okay, when I've traveled, I've traveled longer than you have just because by the mere fact that
Yes,
I'm older than you, right? And
you have.
so a lot of the places I've gone, I've stayed for long periods of time and I've had the opportunity to travel back multiple times. And so the first time I would sometimes have a rose colored glass perspective of the place because you just see, the sights and you see the travel places, the places where the tourists go and things like that. And then when you go subsequent times, then have more of an opportunity to, read the local papers and, get a sense of the local politics and things like that. I have not been to China yet. My son has. And, but I've been to, many countries in Africa. I've been to many countries in Europe. I've been into many countries in South America. And I would say what stands out in America is that one, because America has the largest military presence and the strongest military, it also has the strongest economy, and it's also the world's reserve currency. That's what makes America attractive for other people to come. The reason they come to America is because there's an opportunity through capitalism for them to take an idea, be innovative and hardworking, and make that money work for them. I've seen other countries, particularly in Europe and in South America, and also in Africa to a certain degree, of being able to address your issues and concerns with the government without direct repercussion. Now, if you start to bomb buildings and burn things down, then of course you're going to suffer a consequence. That's no different than here in America. But there are places where you can be critical of the government without fear of being killed. And so I think there are other places in the world that are great places to live. I'm not necessarily saying that it's a better alternative to America necessarily, depending upon where you are in your life. Let me explain.
Right.
If I have made my money here in America and I have enough wealth to sustain me for the rest of my life, and I still have access to that capital, there are other places in the world that are very pleasant to live. Like countries like Georgia are pleasant to live. Portugal, Australia. When you look at South America, Argentina, Uruguay. When you look in Europe, like places like Spain. Like I already mentioned Portugal, in Africa, Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana. There's lots of places throughout the world you can live a comfortable life. The cost of living is much less. You can, if you desire to live in a tropical area, you have that. If you have a desire to have different people, be your driver or clean your home and you have access to those things at a much cheaper rate. But that is not to say that I would want to use those places as a place to build my wealth. And so
That's the key thing.
And I think so the place in which we agree is the best place on the planet right now, which may change. Right now, no question about it, the United States is definitely the best place to build wealth. I believe that's going to change. I believe that in the next 20 to 40 years, I think Africa is going to be on the map because you have the youngest population. You have a continent with 54 countries and vast natural resources. And, you and I were talking offline, and we were talking about, like, they have coastline all around the entire continent. And so there are places where there are shallow ports, but there are also places where you have deep ocean liners that come in.
Water ports.
Absolutely. So I believe that Africa will be the next China in the next 20 to 40 years. And so to your point, and I'll wrap up the point, which is this: as it relates to AI, technology, and building wealth, there's no other country that I'd rather be from that standpoint than the United States.
I think that the United States will continue to be what it is, or any country for that matter, that bases their fundamental values on Christian values. I'm not pushing religion or spirituality on anybody, but if you look at the core of Christian-based values, that is what has allowed America to jump. Capitalism and Christian-based values. That's it. This is the country that has Christian-based values from the start, was born that way, and was born with capitalism. So I think that if it holds on to that, then yes. The only challenge I have with the Africa situation is that as we start to shift, into this century, into the end of this century, I think we're going in the direction where you're not going to see a lot of stuff done on the planet anymore. And what I mean by that is you're going to see the source of production being offshore or relegated to low Earth or high Earth orbit, or even lunar stuff. You're going to start to see that it's going to happen in this century, where we are no longer going to be manufacturing on host said planet. It's going to happen offsite. I think
I don't see
where I see it.
Okay. So
as a result, if Africa can gain sovereignty and gain some unity, I think Africa could become a United States. You know what I mean? Like if they could unite, because they can't do it in singularity. They have to do it in uniformity. Mm-hmm. So if Africa as a continent has a shot, or even thinks that having a shot of becoming a global superpower, which I believe they can with the amount of resource, because resource is ultimately what's going to be what's of value. Resource to produce futuristic products. Mm-hmm. So if they can come in unison and they can unite and become a united state and follow a blueprint like the United States would do, then I think Africa is poised to become a very serious contender, because they have a lot of resource. And ultimately that resource is going to be off planet to produce and manufacture and create resources to bring back, because that's how you solve the pollution problem too. If you're manufacturing in space, who cares? You're shuttling it back and forth. I think it's a very exciting time in regards to that's where AI needs to be. The AI needs to be focusing on how to get pollution and manufacturing off the planet so we can save the planet, not reducing. Yeah, let's get efficient in our productive, in our value, in our manufacturing processes, in our pollution processes, in our recycling process, or whatever you want to call it. But let's focus R&D on how to get the crap that pollutes the planet off the planet and then build it that way. I think that's where you're looking at it. So I know that's a totally different direction.
That's a very interesting perspective. I can agree with.
But then again, I'm a visionary and I'm a futurist that way, Len. So
that's good. People like you, they call you crazy until you're not, and then you're genius. So Well, I mean, so I'm either talking to a person that's crazy or is a genius. So I think you're a little bit of both.
I know him. Yeah, I know that guy. I used to podcast with that guy. Remember that guy? He used to sell financial services.
That's right.
Now he's Yeah, no, I'm not saying that's going to happen or anything. That's just the way I think, because I
just don't think you can get around. I hear what you're saying in terms of using extraplanetary innovation to move the needle forward. But I just think in terms of the way that we as human beings are connected to the earth, I think the answer is here. And what I mean by is
it is.
So, like what we breathe out, trees breathe in, right? And vice versa. We have a symbiotic relationship with trees. And so, natural resources that come out of the ground are things that we need to eat and sustain our lives. And I think that was by design. And so I think there is room for, space and interplanetary productivity and things like that. I just don't think that's the most efficient way. I think that should be the side hustle, if you will, not the main job. So
yeah, everybody have a safe, productive holiday, and wishing you guys well. Again, if you like this content, this conversations, you could message us, get involved, like, subscribe, do all those cool things that people do to social media stuff. And with that being said, Len, always a pleasure. I'll see you next week, sir.
all right, have a good one.
Bye.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.